Hello, Antioch Community High School. My name is Caleb Zaborski, and welcome back to your weekly weather forecast. Let's hop right into next week. So for the week of October 28th, 2024, this will be the week of Halloween. We start on Monday. We got a volleyball regional. I think those kind of go out throughout the week, along with bowling tryouts. So those two will be almost like an all-week activity going on after school. But we start with a low of low 40s and a high of low 60s. Pretty nice fall temperatures, but you're going to see it gets really hot, especially around Halloween and Wednesday. So Tuesday, not much sports-wise going on, but there's financial aid night for college going on here at Antioch, 6:30 to 7:30. For that, a high of mid-70s and a low of high 50s. Very not average temperatures for it being very late October, almost into early November. And you're going to see it kind of continues into Wednesday. We got bowling tryouts once again all week. But a high of high 70s, possibly even into the low 80s, and a low of mid 60s. So very unaverage temperatures, and it's going to be nice, especially for Halloween, is that you're not going to be freezing when you walk around trick-or-treating. And we go for that, hop right into Thursday, Halloween. A high of high 70s and a low of high 50s. Once again, very nice temperatures. Friday, we have a chess competition versus Waukegan here at Antioch. Once again, not many sports going on, so I had to fill up with other things. For that, a high of low 70s and a low of low 60s. Once again, very nice temperatures after the somewhat cold start Monday. Saturday, we have cross-country sectionals for both Antioch girls and boys. And for that, a high of low 60s and a low 40s. It gets colder there. And then you're going to see on Sunday, once again, not much going on there, a high of low 50s and a low of high 30s. So you're going to see it kind of starts just a little bit cold, gets really hot, and then cools back down with the cold front. That should also bring possibly some rain that I saw, which will help with the drought. But let's hop right into the temperature outlook. You're going to see, once again, as shown by the forecast for this week, very ridiculously above average, as shown here. And then for the precipitation outlook, just slightly above average. I know we've been in this drought for almost 3 months now. We've been very abnormally dry. I know October we got almost close to no rain at all. But we should be seeing some of this rain get back as the severe weather season actually gets a little bit of a second season here. This is the fall season, so there is a little bit of a second severe season that starts up, and that usually brings some rain, and then obviously once we get later, some snow. So let's hop right back into the tropics. These graphics are as of Wednesday, October 23rd, and you're going to see this actually forecast for the weeks upcoming. Not that much in terms of activity forecast, just a little bit above 20% chance. Very low considering, but I did see some models show a possible storm forming in that Caribbean area and possibly impacting along the eastern coast or even Florida. Once again, those are just one-time models, and the ensembles support something showing up, but not something extreme that would pose a threat to mainland U.S. And then for what's going on as of Wednesday, October 23rd, nothing much going on in the Atlantic Basin. And then for the Pacific Basin, we have Chrissy. Not much going on there. May impact water and rip currents going on along the coast of Mexico. But this actually trying to make a run at Category 5 status, just kind of out. What was funny is that this actually was Tropical Storm Nadine that impacted just around here, and that formed in the Atlantic and moved, and now reformed as Chrissy. And that's just, once again, fish storms, as we call them. They don't really impact any land. They kind of impact the sea, and once again, that doesn't do much for us. Then I want to kind of go into an October recap, because we've had some pretty extraordinary weather going on. So for the tropical recap, we've had a handful of tropical systems, and we started with Hurricane Kirk. That was just out in the middle of the Atlantic, so once again, not much of a threat to us. But it was a Category 4, 145 miles per hour, and brought strong winds to Porto, Portugal. So that kind of was in the Atlantic, curved up, and then curved to the east and impacted Europe. That's most of these Atlantic storms kind of do that. They kind of curve over. Usually they impact the United Kingdom, France, and obviously this impacted Portugal. And then we had Hurricane Leslie, a Category 2, 105 miles per hour, and that impacted France with just kind of a lot of rain, not too much wind with that. And then obviously the big name storm here, Hurricane Milton, Category 5, 180 miles per hour, and made landfall near Siesta Key, Florida, not as a Category 5, it was a Category 3. But, once again, Hurricane Milton brought extreme rain, extreme storm surge, and also extreme winds. This was a very abnormal storm. It had explosive intensification rather than rapid intensification, which is a whole other tier of intensification in of itself. Obviously, we had Nadine that I just talked about becoming Chrissy. Once again, that made landfall around Belize City, Belize. And then Oscar, while being a weak storm, actually broke a record for the smallest hurricane ever observed on the planet. So it was incredibly small. The like wind field range of the hurricane force winds was, I think, around 5 nautical miles, or I think it rounds to like anywhere from 4 to 7 miles actually. And then the tropical storm force winds were like 35 miles out. But once again, smallest hurricane ever observed on the planet, which is super interesting. And it is possible, because it was so small, that it's possible that it could have been stronger. And some of them do. Usually at the end of the season, the NOAA and National Weather Service, they will collaborate and try and see if anything should have been upgraded in post-analysis. I know they kind of did that with hurricanes last year, maybe Ida. But for something like this that was not even picked up on models because of how small it was, that's kind of one of the top stories of what is the post-analysis going to be. And then the Spirits weather recap, I know I sent emails out about all the October weather going on, especially this. This is the space weather recap. We had a period of solar activity coinciding with the solar maximum, which would maintain for about a year to 2 years, because these are 13-year cycles of extreme activity and then close to no activity in terms of the aurora and solar flares. So right now we are in a maximum. We just had an X3.3 flare, but that was on the southeast limb of the sun, so that is not actually going to impact us. But usually with these maximums, we get more of those very intense flares that are directed at Earth and bring stuff like the aurora over here. So I want to kind of go through just a handful of photos from other students that occurred on Thursday, October 10th. So we start with this. This is actually mine. I took a high exposure shot with my iPhone, and this was, I think, around midnight. But the aurora kind of came in a substorm, and I think it was 2 or 3 substorms that I stayed for. I know that there was more later at night, but I wanted to go get my sleep. But once again, beautiful colors, beautiful pillars and lines of, especially this, had great greens and great reds. Back in May, very purple almost, but that also was a much more intense solar storm. So it's very interesting seeing the different colors that the aurora can produce. This is from a student here at Antioch. It's going to be a little bit hard to see, but you can see that like faint green glow in the background behind the house, and that kind of is what you usually would see in terms of not seeing a substorm. So it'd be very faint green glows off to the horizon. And then this was right after the Thursday football game. I remember I saw a ton of students there looking at the aurora, myself included, right after the game, and I saw football players look at it. Everyone from every background was looking at the aurora. It was a very nice and surreal experience to actually see it, even with all the light pollution, because this is a very intense green, and you can see kind of the red on top, but it's very hard to see that with all the light pollution and all the stadium lights. So it's very interesting to see that this substorm, I think around 10 o'clock-ish, was also very intense. And we're going to say, yeah, this is another student's perspective of that. The substorms, they kind of move relatively quickly, and you can kind of see, I have videos of the aurora, and you can kind of see it pulse, and you can see the lines move if you speed it up. But during the substorms is when it really gets active, so you can see a lot more in terms of all of that. It's really interesting. And then, before I close out this weather forecast, this will be approaching the 12-year anniversary of Hurricane Sandy, also known as Superstorm Sandy, brought a ton of rain, winds, and also snow over in places like New York City, which is really abnormal for them to get a hurricane. But once again, very impactful storm, very historic storm in terms of hurricanes that have impacted the U.S., not even for being a strong hurricane, but for the unique impacts it brought to the New York City area, places to the north of that, places to the south of that even. But that does it for your weekly weather forecast number 10.